Hi everyone, I'm Archana Kuppaswamy, a Senior Partner Solutions Architect and SAP Specialist from AWS. I'm very glad to introduce you to Shriman from Sierra Digital.
Hey, thanks so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're really excited. We're going to share with you Sierra's application and migration accelerators on AWS for SAP.
Sure,
Yes, sir.
let's go.
Shriman, could you please share us about Sierra Digital?
Absolutely, Archana. We've been a great partner with AWS. We are in the bleeding edge of technology thanks to AWS and SAP. We are a wall-to-wall SAP company, 22 years in business. I'm an enterprise architect. My CEO has been an enterprise architect too. We have a tech-focused team that is in the bleeding edge of technology, talk about GenAI, BTP content. We are an innovation partner. We are an innovation partner for SAP. We are actually part of their innovation council. And again, a focus partner for joint development with Germany. So the product development engineering teams, we are very tightly integrated with them. There's a lot of features that the customers might want, but not present in the product. And that's our stepping stone into BTP. So we started developing a lot of extensions, collaborating with SAP on those lines. And we lead conversations with customers around assessments, and that's our accelerator. So we're a consulting-led company, and a lot of GenAI content. That's again part of the innovation strategy that we have with SAP. So design thinking workshops, app house, the whole 9 yards of it.
Okay, so Shriman, let's discuss about some of the enterprise challenges that we are commonly seeing.
Absolutely, Archana. What I see is customers have run technology for 2-3 decades. They have started with Fortran, COBOL, progress to Java, and today there's a lot of enterprise applications. There's a plethora of applications. One of the first one to recognize is companies are carrying a technology debt, and they are looking to overcome this technology debt. They have users who've been using the system for several years. They don't want to inconvenience the user. At the same time, they want to modernize. So that's an important challenge that the companies are faced with. There is a lot of legacy applications that are there and legacy data. So again, if you look at legacy applications, it could be mainframe applications, it could be pre-built applications, you could be looking at predated versions of, take SAP for example. Several customers are running on ECC, they are on EHP 4, they are not on EHP 8, and today we are looking at customers to get to the cloud. There's a lot of emphasis on how your data should be, how your information architecture should be. So this is very important because a lot of companies are talking about artificial intelligence, GenAI. GenAI thrives on data. So how do you make sure that you have the right information architecture? So that's again another challenge that I look at. All of this to get to a future-ready enterprise. You have to make sure that the customers get to a future-ready state. One thing that I have missed out here is, so if you look at this technical debt, the legacy applications and data information architecture, we are talking about a lot of disparate systems here. These disparate systems have to talk with each other. These have got accumulated. There is so much of innovation that's happening, SaaS-based applications, so much coming from Amazon, your hyperscalers. How do I get these disparate systems, applications, data in an information architecture that leads you to a future-ready state? So that's primarily what the challenge and the roadmap that Sierra is trying to figure out for customers, Archana.
So far, we have been discussing about the various enterprise challenges. I'm really excited to learn more about Sierra, how Sierra is helping customers move to that future-ready state that we have been talking about.
When you're looking at a future-ready state, this is, you need to understand your technical debt. And you have to modernize. So you are looking at moving from a technical debt to a state of modernized architectures or systems. In Sierra, we use assessments for that. That gets you the ASIS. And from a modernization perspective, we use something called as APHOS, which is a design thinking methodology. That gets you to the to-be state. Now, let me explain. So you're looking at customers running a large technology debt, and we have a number of assessments that establishes this technology debt. Now, this technology debt could be code related, could be integration related, could be data related. So we're looking at a lot of aspects here, and that gets you to an ASIS. So the customers know what is it that they are currently dealing with. Now, from a modernization perspective, we are looking at a design thinking workshop that we sit with the customer. It is like it is a methodology that is designed human-centered approach. So we want the customers to imagine and tell us what the to-be state that they want to achieve. And this is the bridge that needs to be bridged. So there is a lot of challenges when it comes to code, integration, data, and you are also capturing the to-be state that the customer wants to get to, which is your future-ready state. And then the roadmap between this is what Sierra does with customers from a transformation journey. Hope this explains.
Perfect.
Archana, you remember we spoke about the future-ready state. What you're looking at is the future-ready state where you want our customers to be. This is basically S/4HANA, which is your cloud ERP. It could be a RISE customer. It could be a customer who is on the cloud native on AWS. It could be on any hyperscaler. It could be S/4HANA Grow, public cloud. So you're talking about the midsection, which is the cloud ERP. And then you have the BTP on the right-hand side, right? This is the state that you want the customer to be in. But currently you have the customer running ECC, you have them running BW, you have them running BobJ, you have them running BPC, you have them running PIPO, you have customers who have implemented success factors, you have them running Ariba, you have them running Coupa, or there could be so many third-party systems, billing systems that you're looking at. You have a plethora of applications that you want to integrate. There is so much of code, there is so much of data, there is so much of integration that you want to get the customer into S/4HANA using BTP. So what are the ones in BTP that you're looking at? AppDev from the customer's code. So you want to modernize code, you have AppDev, you have integration. That's an important portion, which BTP addresses. I'm talking about so many disparate systems. You want data from success factors, you want data from Ariba. So integration is another pillar. Data. That's the core. How do I archive data? How do I bring data into an information architecture that ties into your S4? How do I get my finance information? How do I get my procurement information? This is all enterprise data that we're talking about. Okay. Now I have all data. Now analytics and planning. This is the most important factor where you are trying to bring about a intelligent enterprise. So that is something that we are definitely looking at, planning and analytics. And finally, your GenAI. You have, this is a very important topic. How do I take my data and bring intelligence from my S4 using BTP? So this is primarily what we are going to be looking at. Here is where, this entire BTP stack is running from AWS and many other hyperscalers. That is where the partnership, makes brilliance. So in the future sections, we'll actually look at how my assessments, how my workshops gets the customer into this future ready state using BTP on AWS.
All right, Shriman, we have been discussing about how Sierra's assessment has been helping customers move to a future-ready state. Can you please elaborate and deep dive into this?
Absolutely, Archana. So when I talk about assessments from Sierra, we actually have an assessment hub. That's how it's a foot to the door. It gets conversations started with the customer. There are a number of assessments that we do. I'm just going to quickly go about showing you the plethora of assessments. You have a specific assessment for RISE, code, data, and integration. So these are all the sets of assessments. When you look at the RISE assessment, you're typically talking about an ECC install base customers that you're looking at. So how do I take this customer? There are several, the customer could go from a greenfield, and they could go brown. There are several versions of brownfield, brownfield plus, then there is bluefield, and there is goldfield. This is actually a new terminology that I heard, where this is some customers who are on S4, previous versions of S4, like your 1709s or 1909s, where you want to take them to the 22, the latest and greatest. So typically, any which way the customer wants to get to RISE, or a cloud transformation for that matter. They want to be native on. So this is actually a new word, Goldfield. This is primarily where you have very old versions of S4, where you want to bring them to the latest and greatest. So it could be any of the flavors of your transformation. And we have assessments that basically takes the current code base, current data, and tells the customer how to get to a transformation journey using RISE. We have a similar one for Grow customers also. So, and we have a assessment that gets to a cloud ERP. It could be a native cloud implementation on AWS. Several customers want to be native on AWS, but on S4. So for all of this, we have an ERP assessment tool, which is more looks at not just the technical landscape, but also the functional landscape. Then comes the code, where you are talking about the concept of clean code. So today people are talking about, they've been running the ERP for several years. How do I look at understanding customizations on the code that I have done? What customizations I want to carry into my cloud ERP? So it could be any kind of code transformations that you're looking at. Again, data. This is a huge section. Customers have a business warehouse, BW for HANA, so many versions. Dated BWs, SAP BW. You're talking about here BobJ, which is their analytics platform, their planning, which is BPC. All of this you want to modernize. First and foremost, you need to understand what is their BW looking like. How much objects am I using? How much objects should I retire? Same for code also. What is the usage analysis? What is my, what can I retire? What can I refactor? So these are all things that the customers have a very limited clue. My assessment is not just about showing as-is, but gets you insights, actionable insights, and also it is very prescriptive. It will tell the people, hey, you have code, and this is what you need to do to get to the future ready state. So that way, it's a very intelligent assessment. It does not stop with saying, oh yeah, I have assessed and it is you need improvement. What improvement is required? That is what the customer grapple with most of the cases. That is where our assessments are differentiated. Same with your data. You get completely what is your as-is state. It also gets you a window into the to-be state. So that is where our assessments are very different. All of this gets you into DataSphere and SAC. So this is the pillar in the BTP. So if you look at the pillar, all of these assessments gets you to a certain state. This particular code tells you what extensions should I use? What build code should I use? Right. Coming to the integration aspect again, you are there is PIPO, which is what people have currently used, and they want to get into integration suite. Now, from a future ready state, how do I get the information flows? How do I look at a event driven architecture? And absolutely Cloud Foundry, that is the Neo was the Esther world into Cloud Foundry. Now, again, we understand the existing landscape and map it out to the to-be state. So this, in conjunction with the app house, gets the customer into a future-ready state.
We'd like to learn more about how Sierra is helping customers reach that to be like the future-ready enterprise state.
So, like we just as a summary, you get the assets using all the assessments. Now you want to focus on the to-be state. One of the tools that Sierra uses with customers is SAP's App House network. So it's a design thinking methodology. It is something that SAP follows. It follows the human-centered design thinking methodology. So it starts from empathizing with the customers, ideating with the customers, building prototypes with the customers. Essentially, it's a very fun way of trying to get the customers to express what their to-be state is. So I want to modernize what in my imagination is modern. That is what you want to get to. Now, from this basically gets the customer away from the tech debt that they are looking at. Okay. Now, in the path to modernizing, you are able to capture a lot of wants and a lot of systems. Now, this is where Sierra has pre-built content. I can call those accelerators. This is where you have the Lego block, building blocks. So you are looking at the customers to modernize, and there is a lot of LOB content, finance, procurement, human resources. There's so much line of business content that is common across customers. So we have built pre-built content. So the LOB businesses, we call it as ozone. Okay. There are industry-specific content. For example, let's take oil and gas, for example. EnerBridge is one of the oil and gas specific pre-built content that we have. Oil and gas customers have, there is upstream customers, there is midstream, there is downstream customers. You're looking at POS, you're looking at how do I integrate it with volumetric analysis. Every possible pre-built content that the customer would want, we have generalized and put it as BTP applications, BTP apps. Ozone, again, very similar to what we saw. You have a new vendor to be onboarded. There's so many processes to be followed. It's very common across the industry. We have taken all that and combined it into a set of pre-built content. You have invoice recognition and reconciliation. We have so many such accelerators that we have combined it as part of LOB in Ozone. All of them are pre-built content. Also, we have one other very important content, which is Orbit, which focuses on disparate data that needs to move into your cloud ERP. And this disparate data, how does companies look at consolidating from a data migration tool perspective? So that is primarily what Orbit is. So if you're looking at Ozone, EnerBridge, Orbit, all of them are integrated on an AWS infrastructure, and you have Ozone and EnerBridge on SAP Store, which can be deployed on the AWS infrastructure. So last section we saw Orbit, which is available in AWS Marketplace. This shows the audience how Orbit, a pre-built content, gets deployed in an Amazon infrastructure. This whole architecture diagram leverages or showcases the Amazon infrastructure. Amazon Textract, your Amazon Bedrock, your Amazon EC2 auto scaling. While the Amazon infrastructure provides Orbit the capability to take disparate data into a cloud ERP.
We've been discussing a lot so far. Thank you, Shriman. Would it be possible for you to summarize?
Yeah, I think we saw assessments, as is how customers understand what their assets landscape is, workshops, again, design thinking, how to imagine what your to-be state should be. And then we have pre-built contents, accelerators, some of them on your AWS Marketplace, some of them on SAP Store that the customers can leverage. I think combination of all this with the modernization tools, we get customers on the roadmap to digital transformation.
Excellent. Just a quick question. How do customers reach out to you if they have any queries?
This QR code is the easiest. Scan the QR code. You will get to sales at sierradigitalinc.com, and my team will get back to customers.